Welcome to the Rehabilitation Studies Speaker Series. The event will begin shortly. Thank you for joining us for this week's presentation. If you'd like to learn more about applying for the Rehabilitation Counseling Education Master's Program or the Rehabilitation and Addiction Counseling Master's Program at St. Cloud State University, please email rce@stcloudstate.edu. Applications are currently being accepted for the fall 2021 term. If you would like to watch the recorded version of this presentation or prior presentations, please visit our YouTube channel by searching for St. Cloud State University Rehabilitation Studies on YouTube. Welcome to the Rehabilitation Studies Speaker Series. The event will begin shortly. Thank you for joining us for this week's presentation. If you'd like to learn more about applying for the Rehabilitation Counseling Education Master's Program or the Rehabilitation and Addiction Counseling Master's Program at St. Cloud State University, please email rce@stcloudstate.edu. Applications are currently being accepted for the fall 2021 term.
Cloud
Hey,
State
Tian.
University.
Tian, this
Hi,
is
can you
Dr.
hear me?
Knopf. Can you wait a minute and let the interpreter get set up first? Okay.
We'll wait and everyone's good to go. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Rehabilitation Studies speaker series at St. Cloud State University. Before we get started, I would like to go over some housekeeping items. If you need CRC CEUs, after you pay the session fee and attend the webinar, you'll be sent a short quiz. Once the entire series is complete, we will issue you your CEU certificate. All of the sessions will be recorded and will be available for free on our YouTube page. But we will continue to allow people to gain CEU credits by watching the recordings and taking the CEU quiz. I would like to start with some introductions. My name is Tian Lim. I am a graduate student here at the with the Rehab Counseling Program. I have short black hair, and I have brown eyes, slightly thick eyebrows, and a fairly pale but kind of reddish skin. And I'm in a gray t-shirt today.
And my name is Mary Colbert. I am also a graduate student here at St. Cloud State University. I have long light brown hair. I am wearing a black and white striped sweater, and I have blue eyes and blue braces. And to start off, Wally, would you please audio describe yourself and then give us a brief introduction?
Certainly. My name is Walter Waranka, and I am wearing a nice little top hat. I have a COVID look going. I've got long hair and a long beard with a mustache. I also am wearing a blue and white striped shirt and a blue blazer. And I know that because my wife helped pick it out, so I know the colors. I have been with LifeTrack as an employment specialist, primarily helping individuals with disabilities keep and maintain their jobs and advance within their jobs, and also look for jobs too, for the last 24 years.
Can you talk about being blind and what it means to you and how that has shaped your experience?
Certainly. I have been blind from birth, and I'm the oldest of 3 children. The middle child, my sister, her eyesight did not go bad till about 25, 30 years ago. And my youngest sister, she was also born with limited eyesight from birth. And we grew up in a family where we were the first generation anywhere as far back as we could go with having a blindness. And my parents, not really knowing much about it, not understanding it much, pretty much just raised us up as individuals and learned on the fly what blindness meant and how to react to it. I was not really diagnosed till the middle of 5th grade that I was having trouble reading large print and had to learn Braille. So that's when they started to find out how bad my eyesight was, but my youngest sister started Braille when she was young. So I've grown up, I went to state school for the blind for junior high and high school. I have a undergraduate degree in mass communication public relations from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Yes, I'm a cheesehead. And I have a graduate degree from Cardinal Stritch University in religious studies, and certified as a youth minister and a pastoral minister for Black Catholic parishes. I've done everything in my career, from working at a sheltered workshop for the blind, to youth ministry in the inner city of Milwaukee, to running my own nonprofit for 3 years, helping individuals with disabilities find competitive work. And also then, like I mentioned, 24 years at LifeTrack doing the same type of work. A lot of volunteer work, been on a lot of different committees. And so for me, growing up with my blindness, as far as what I've been able to do, it's been pretty cut and dry, I say fairly normal. It's had its ups and downs. It has its struggles, of course, because there are obstacles you run into all the time. There are things that you need to overcome. There are things you need to work through, challenges, accommodations. So it's been a road. It's been an interesting life so far. I'm 61 years old right now. It has its ups and its downs. And I must tell you that there are days that I can get pretty bummed out for the blindness, but there's a lot of days that I look and say, well, it's just what it is, and I have to work through it and work with it and keep going with it. I believe I'm fairly confident with myself and who I am and with the blindness. And it's been a goal or mission sort of for me to educate people, but not so much by just preaching to them, but by just trying to be the example I can and let them learn from interacting and getting to know me and being around me. So that's kind of how I do it. I don't go out to be the look at the amazing blind guy. I go out to be, I'm just like anybody else, just trying to do like anybody else.
Perfect. For our audience members that aren't familiar with LifeTrack, could you also talk a little bit more about that?
Certainly. LifeTrack is a nonprofit agency here in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they've been around since like 1949. They got their start working with children with polio, providing therapy for them, and from there it just kept growing. And in the 60s, they reached out and started to do placement services for individuals with disabilities, and then they got involved with the Welfare to Work program and immigrants and refugees, and grew from there and became a very powerful nonprofit agency within St. Paul. Currently, due to all kinds of different situations, we are in the process of still doing the work that we do and still being LifeTrack, but we're merging with Lutheran Social Services for a multitude of reasons, but we're going to be even involved with a larger organization and hopefully growing a lot more also. So that's, and we also have a major part of our agency that does, it's called Families Together. They do a lot of work with children who are coming from families that the children have a lot of emotional issues and other issues going on that are kind of preventing them from being fully participatory in elementary school, kindergarten. So they come to us in preschool and learn coping skills and skills to deal with things that are going on within their life. And meanwhile, LifeTrack helps the parents get settled, get them up and going, and work to make them much more achievable for themselves. And then we also have another program in our under our agency umbrella that does work with parents of children who are deaf and hard of hearing. So that's a lot of what we do. There's more little things here and there, but that's LifeTrack.
Okay. What are some preconceived notions or misconceptions about blindness that you've personally experienced?
We got 3 hours or 4. Honestly, one of the biggest things I run into, and it's great that you use the word misconception and preconceived notions. One of the things I've noticed that goes on that we all do as human beings, that we all do as individuals, is we have a tendency to take our first impressions that we have with something or somebody or some situation and use that as our guidepost and as our rule of thumb on how the next situation, person, whoever comes along in that same situation or as that same kind of disability or whatever it may be, as our guidance, our polar that we hold them up to. So I get a lot of responses and questions and situations of, oh, you can't do this, you can do this, or how can you do that, or how can you do this? Or my favorite is always they ask me, do you know so-and-so? And I go, no, never heard of them. Well, they're our choir director, they're blind, and don't you know them? And I'm sorry, all blind people don't know all blind people. It's some folks have that notion. Another example would be that there was a period at LifeTrack where I would be the supervisor and oversee interns, and one of our interns was also blind who came to LifeTrack. And a couple weeks later, I received, excuse me just a second. I received one of my coworkers in my office, and they were going, Wally, we're just so frustrated. We just don't get it. We don't understand. I go, what's the matter? And they go, well, so-and-so, the intern, they can't find their way out of their cubicle. They get lost so easily. They're not like you. They're not running. You go all over the place. You go here, go there. You're just all on your own. You don't, any problem, you don't get lost. I go, that's because that person's different than me. And they have different skills and different abilities, and don't hold them up against me and say, why aren't you like Wally? Because that's not fair. And so that's a lot of what I see goes on with individuals who come into my life as first coming to deal with me and deal with the blindness. It's something that happens very commonly, not all the time, but it happens because it's what we do. Is I'm guilty of doing it too in situations. And so that's one thing. The other one is how the blind people are wonderful hearers. Oh, you can hear everything. You got great hearing. And when I first met my wife, we would go out for hikes, and I'd be going, oh, did you hear that? Did you hear this? And she goes, no. And then within a month, 2 months later, she's going, did you hear that? Did you hear this? And I go, no. And so she, by utilizing her sense of hearing more, became just as sharp and even sharper at times than I did. So it's, you know, it's a myth that's out there that, you know, we have these super extraordinary other senses because we can't see. But many years ago, I watched a story on 60 Minutes, and they researched this issue. And what they found, and what researchers are finding, is when individual's visual cortex isn't working, when it's gone, the brain does reroute and redo its electrical system to compensate for that missing piece. And so, yes, there is something to that. We have maybe sharper hearing or other senses, but that's just because our brain and our mind and our body is compensating for one of the major senses that isn't active and not there. So it's a fascinating thing, but that's another thing that people will hear and see. And um, the other one I run across a lot also is individuals thinking that I need help automatically. And I've had many situations where people will just come up and say, I'm waiting to cross the street and waiting for the light to change. And somebody comes up and grabs my arm, starts pushing me across the street. And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. First of all, I didn't ask for your help. And second of all, I don't want you pushing me, because if you're pushing me, that means I'm going in the hole first. If you miss something and I go falling, because you're pushing me, no, that's not how it works. I hold on to you. If I would like your help, please just come up and ask. And if I turn you down, don't get upset. But if I accept, let me explain to you the proper way that I would prefer to have you guide me. So there's a lot of those kind of assumptions to where people will just automatically think I need help when I really don't.
Mm-hmm. All right. What types of assistive technology have you found most helpful?
My wife, she's been very helpful. I also am a cane traveler with mobility, so I use the traditional red and white cane, which many cars still don't understand what that means, but we're getting there. Um, so that's very helpful to me. I think one of the greatest advancements and one of the greatest frustrations that's ever been created for blind people has been the introduction of speech software, JAWS, or the built-in processor that's in Apple or Amazon, or not Amazon, can't think of the other phone, but anyways, the built-in speech, whatever, but it's opened up the world of the internet to us individuals who are blind, to be able to communicate, to be able to go out and research, look for things, do things. And so that has opened up a whole new world for us, and also a whole new opportunities of work and job opportunities. But at the same time, it's very frustrating because the fact that the internet changes so quickly and the software programs can have difficulty keeping up with it and being able to navigate, access, and maneuver around on websites, especially when it comes to filling out forms or applications or researching and looking for things and using drop downs and other opportunities. So that can be just as frustrating, and it's frustrating enough that we haven't yet come to an agreement in the world of how to put into a formula accessible website design so that it's automatic and it's there all the time. So there's that situation. Also, you may see around in your neighborhoods or in your cities or towns or throughout the world, wherever you may be, of street crossing signals that are audible. And no, I don't necessarily need them, but they are helpful, especially when there's really not a lot of traffic around. And I utilize them because they are a little extra added bit of help, but I still have to be sure that nobody's turning in front of me. So, but that's another thing. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes around with that story. Someday I can tell that with politics and other things, but that I can find useful when the opportunities arise for it too. So those are a lot of what I use. One of the fun little things, guys, that I just got, and for all you young little techie individuals out there too, I just bought some Bose sunglasses that have the speakers built into them, so I don't have to put earbuds in my ear to take away my hearing when I'm walking around. So I can jam to my tunes and not have to have my ears clogged up. So, and they're really slick. So that was a cool little, that's not a necessary tool for blindness, but it does help with my hearing. So.
Wally, what advice would you give to someone who is newly visually impaired?
First of all, allow yourself to go through all your emotions. Don't let other people say, well, you can't feel that, or you should just pick yourself up and go. You should be able to do this and do that. No, you should first of all have to go through all the basic levels of dealing with the loss of your eyesight. That is really important because you will be at different stages, and it is difficult. I've always, in my mind, contended and always have said, for me personally, having grown up and being with the blindness, it's a part of my life, and it's always been a part of my life, and I've had to learn how to live with it, adapt with it, grow with it, keep going with it, because it's just who I am. But I've always said, if you lose something, I think the acceptance and the dealing with can be a lot harder. So first of all, allow yourself to go through the emotions. Second of all, research and reach out, and don't be ashamed to ask for support, training, whatever may be out there. There's a lot of organizations and a lot of groups that can offer you some assistance. Research and see if their philosophies and their ideas fit with what you believe with and what you think with, and then utilize them to help you grow within your loss of eyesight. It's a scary thing, absolutely, because we live in a culture, in a world that everything is visual. It's the number one way of communicating, of getting our points across. A capitalistic society is built on advertising, selling, getting you to buy the product. And commercials are there for the visual, to stimulate your brain, to get you going, to get you want that product and have that product. We don't have TVs that give you the smell or whatever, so those other senses are there, and they can be, but it's all with the visual art. And with anything you see, when you're looking for dating, you look for somebody and it's right away, it's the visual thing. That's what you first look at. So we live in a culture that's very visually driven. So with the fact that you start to lose it, I understand that many people think losing your eyesight is one of the most scariest things that can ever happen to you. And it is, and it isn't. It is for the fact that you're, again, losing what you had, but also there's a lot of things out there to help you out and to help you get through it. You'll be surprised what you'll be able to do and what you'll be able to learn once you give yourself the permission to do so and you accept and go through it. I'm still learning. I still struggle. I still get mad all the time at that door that I left open, and I go run back into it later on because it's there. I'm a hard critic of myself. My wife she'll agree with that. But I'm learning, even still to this day, to not be so hard on myself and let myself accept that, okay, you were silly to leave the door open. You ran back into it. That's just what it is. There you go. So that's there. And there is a lot of help out there. And as much as you can, and if you can, try to find somebody else who is blind that can be a mentor to you, that can help you work to bounce things off of, just to even be there to be the person you can yell and scream at and cry or whatever it might be. But you've got all that to go through. So I say, don't lose hope, don't lose focus. Just go through, let yourself. I think the biggest thing we do as a human being is we don't allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to feel all the emotions and to go through everything that we need to, because it is a process that you'll have to go through.
Thank you for that insight. So how do individuals with visual impairment distinguish between different denominations of money?
Well, that's a good one. One of the things I'd always say, move to Europe because their money's so much easier to figure out. But in the past, you had to rely on honest and trustworthy individuals. There are things that you can buy. I have one where you can puncture in the little corner a little bit of Braille on the dollar bills or such. Here, though, is where technology has really taken a leap for individuals with who are blind. And that is, I have an app on my iPhone that was free, I do believe, because I got it so long ago. But I just turn that app on and I hold it over my money, and it'll tell me what the denomination is, what the bill is. And that has been a huge leap. They've had machines that you could buy where you can put the money, the paper money in, and it will tell you the currency. And once you figure it out, one of the tricks we all do is we fold the different denominations different ways. Like for me, the dollar bill, I fold over into 4 times. And the certain other bill, I fold, the 5 I fold once, the 10 I fold the long way at one time. And then the 20s, because they're so rare in my wallet, I just leave them out straight because, you know, I don't go above 50 or 100s because I very rarely see those. So you have those little methods that you will do type of thing. So it really has taken a leap with technology that helps a whole lot.
Wally, how do you conceptualize colors?
That's a good one. For me, I have had a little bit of vision in the beginning of my life that I remember the basic colors. And so I have a little bit to go off of. What really blows my mind, and this example was one time we were looking for paint for the house and we were at a hardware store and my wife's looking at white paint and she's taking forever. And I finally go, what is taking you so long? And she goes, well, I don't know which white to get. And I go, what do you mean which white? She goes, well, there's 50 different shades of white. I go, no, there isn't. There's white. She goes, no, there's 50 shades. So she ended up getting one called Snow Blizzard White or something like that. I just scratched my head over what you in the sighted community have done with colors and made them so complicated and so difficult. And so for me, I have that little bit to go. But one of my past relationships, I was dating a lady who was blind, and we talked about that for a while. And she'd been blind from birth, never saw colors or anything. And so for her, when you would mention like yellow, she, just because people have said that, she would get the thought of the warmth of the sun because people said that's a yellow ball up in the sky. And so her orange might be the shape, just a round ball type thing, because that's an orange. She had a tendency to equate colors in her mind with objects or feelings or emotions, different ways of doing that. So some individuals will do that. Some of them, it's just not a concept of it all. I had a student back in high school that totally blind from birth, and he didn't give a care about colors. He would wear stripes and polka dots and checkers or whatever all together and didn't care one bit. And that was just the way he dealt with it. He said, I'm not even worrying or bothering about it. His parents tried, and you have the ability to put tags on your clothing that will identify it for you. The colors, you put these little tags on the back and it says if it's blue, green, or whatever. So you can have some kind of color concept. Also, again, technology there. There's apps out there that you can get. I think I have one on my phone too that will tell me the color. You just hold it up to whatever it is and it'll say that's color red or blue. And so you go by your concepts of what goes or not together from what people have told you. But so for some individuals, it's attached to an emotion or object. To others, there's just what people say the color is and what should go together or not.
All right. There are many people here today that are either in school or planning to be a counselor in the rehabilitation field and may not know much about working with people who are blind. Wally, if you could give us one piece of advice, what would it be?
Very simple. And I do this, I've taught some classes before too, over at your competition and in Mankato and that stuff. And I've, throughout the class, the number one thing that I would say, and it's the number one thing I tell all my interns, it's the number one thing I really believe from all my years is listen. And listen to really what that individual is sharing and saying. Get to know any of your clients, but we're talking for blindness now. Get to know that person. Find out who they are, how they tick, how they do things, where are they at as far as their abilities and their skills, and especially what do they want to do? What do they want to be? What are goals? What are ambitions, dreams, or whatever? I see too often out there that it's easy to pigeonhole somebody into where you think that individual should go with a disability. And it's not as easy to listen to that individual and hear what they're saying and then figure out where and how you can fit that person into whatever their goal is, or um, uh, whatever their aspiration might be for life. So it's a thing where I've seen too often where the counselor or the advisor or whoever it might be isn't listening to the individual and isn't taking the time to learn that individual. Because again, we're all one, we're all together. I just saw a thing on the news the other day that researchers have found out that we all share 99% DNA. We all have the same 99% of DNA. It's that 1% of our DNA that makes us different. So if that's the case, we all have a lot in common. There's just so much, there's just a little bit that makes us different. So let's stop trying to fit people into a group or into a box, and let's start letting that 1% get out and hear what makes that person unique, what makes that person different, and what that person can bring to the situation, not what you can bring them to. I think that's what we do a lot of, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. So for all of you students out there and for all you counselors or such, really step back and assess, are you listening to every individual that comes through your door? And I understand in the counseling field, you could have huge caseloads and you're under a lot of pressure to move people along and get them to the right direction, the right source, down the right path. But I think sometimes that gets in the way of us really trying to figure out what is the right path and the right way for that individual.
This question is more for viewers that are tuning in that do not have vision loss. Is there any advice you have or facts you'd like the world to know regarding living with a vision loss?
Wow, that's a good one. You know, it's not as scary as you think, and yeah, it has ups and downs, like I said earlier, but it's really not as scary as you think. And try not to put onto that person your fears or your misconceptions or your doubts. Too often I can see that they're coming from a good space. There are some that aren't, but many are coming from a good space, but they just don't realize what they're doing, and they just don't see what they're really having as an impact on that individual. Um, I amaze myself. I really do at times, what I can do sometimes, where I can go, what I can be. One of the jokes and one of the things that goes around that I do, and it's not really a joke, but it's people, we laugh about it because it's just so funny, is that when I'm with an individual and I'm in an area that I know and we're driving around in the car, I know where we're at. I can tell you, I remember a coworker started at LifeTrack and we were out going somewhere and I said, hey, you missed your turn. And he looked up with, I did, how did you know that? I go, I just knew that. And he goes, well, I'll turn in here and go cut through the parking lot. I go, you're not gonna be able to get through. He goes in there and he goes, I can't get through. How do you know all that? And I don't know, I just do. I have a little theory for myself, because people say, how do you know, how can you get around so well? And I go, my theory and my practice is when I have spare time or free time, like I did in college a lot of times between classes way back then, I just went out and got lost because I had to find my way back, you know. So my theory is if you want to learn a place, learn something, and you feel confident enough with your mobility skills, go out and get lost. You'll figure your way back and you'll learn a lot from that way. Or go out and just explore your neighborhood or go explore where you're at. And that helps you out a whole lot. So I think kind of getting to the root and the thing of your question is it's not necessarily that bad. And you're going to find people at all different levels of acceptance and of abilities and of attitudes towards their blindness. And so again, going back to what I mentioned in the last response, go up to that individual, don't be fearful, don't be afraid, and approach them and learn how they would like you to interact with them. Learn what they would like to get out of your approachment. especially if you're going to offer, if you think you need to go to offer assistance or help, first find out if they really need it. And then if they do, ask them how they would prefer the assistance if they agree to it. And if they don't be insulted. I've had people get so mad and so angry when I wouldn't let them help me across the street or anything. And I just want you to understand, it's not that I don't want you to, it's just the fact that I can and I'm able to do, and I know what I'm doing. So don't ever be upset or angry that somebody turned you down. So the biggest thing for any of you who are sighted and who wonder about blindness, just relax, chill out, just learn about the individual, and you'll get a real this is a great pun, eye-opening experience for yourself on individuals who are blind.
Yeah, that's great life advice right there. All right, we have a bit of time, so we're gonna open up this time for Q&A. We already have some questions already.
Oh boy.
The first question we have here is asking whether the mentoring program for families of children who are blind or deaf is available through phone or video to support people outside the metro area.
That's a question I'm not too sure about, but I would, I know that through the Hands and Voices that is at LifeTrack, they have individuals throughout the state, and they have opportunities for, so I really don't know the full answer to that one.
Okay.
And then the second question we have are, what are the most important changes you'd like to see from agencies such as Human Services to better serve the public and also employees who have disabilities?
Really work to make your websites accessible. We still run into things with the state of Minnesota. The COVID sign-up sheet had some problems for individuals with speech software to be able to do it on their own. Make sure that any of your external communications, websites, emails, whatever, it's accessible to all individuals throughout. Make sure that if you have important information that you do have the ability to offer it in Braille, if it's possible for you to get it done that way for those individuals who still use Braille. Of course, you always know to make sure that wherever you're at, whatever you're doing is accessible for all individuals via the buildings that you're in. And the other thing too, I would say, and I've run across it here and there, not just with Human Services, but even with retail and other areas. And there's still a lot of education to be done with that. But one of the things, for an example, that I've run into is when I go out and I go to interact with some organization group or some consumer thing like retail stores, whatever, I've come across situations where the individuals will treat me like I'm a child. I'm 61 years old, and you don't need to talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, or you don't need to. If I come with somebody who's acting as my guide, you don't talk to them, you talk to me. The same issue that individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing run into also. You talk to me, and please talk to me as an adult. For many of the cases, I could be your father or your grandfather, and I should not be treated as an individual. There was a situation where my wife and I went to a store here in St. Paul, and I found something and I wanted to buy it, and I had the cash, and I said, okay, I'll take care of it. So I went through the register and went through the whole process, and the cashier was treating and talking to me like I was like a kindergartner, to the point that at the end, when I got change, back when we used real money, she put it in my hand and she counted it out, which is fine, but she counted it out like she's talking to a little kid. A 1, here's a 5. And I was so upset. And as we were leaving, I looked at my wife and I said, you know, in the past, I'd go and get the manager and I'd make a ruckus and I'd raise noise about it and such. But that particular day, I was just tired, and I'm just not going to shop here anymore. And that's what I've done. I've never gone back there again. And I know they don't know, but there's days that I feel like taking on a fight or a situation, and there's other days that I'm tired and I just can't. So go ahead and blame me that I didn't go after it, but it's just where I was at that space. But that's the kind of stuff that I think is I think is one of the real ones. The two big things would be make sure that all your communication and your information is accessible, and following guidance on making your websites accessible for individuals with disabilities. And the other big one is make sure and work with your staff who would be interacting with the individuals with disabilities, that they have total understanding on how you communicate and what's the proper way to interact with your customers who are coming in through your door.
And then our next question is from Stephen Larson. He says, good morning, Walter. I am Stephen Larson with Minnesota State Services for the Blind. I have worked with persons with vision impairments and other disabilities except deafness 38 years. Nearing retirement, I have done some qualitative research of persons with disabilities who are either leaders in their respective fields or economy self-sufficient. I am also distilling what I have learned from working with thousands of people over the years. I was born without arms and am a foot user who drives, fishes, rates, types, cooks, etc. What are 2 or more characteristics which you feel may contribute towards a person gaining leadership and economy self-sufficiency? Over the years, I have only seen fewer than 10 individuals with severe visual disabilities working in this capacity.
First of all, Stefan, thank you for writing in, and I don't believe I've met you yet, which I look forward to someday, that having the chance to meet you. And for an individual with a disability to develop the skills that you're talking about, when I first moved up here 25 plus years ago, I was thrown into the Rehab Advisement Council for State Services for the Blind, and I learned a lot by being on that committee and being on that group, and learned a lot about the politics and everything else. And trust me, people, within disability groups, there are politics and there are philosophy differences and such, and it all exists. And we all have had our issues with it before. And I'm to the point now where you be you and I be me, and this is how we're going to be. And I have my way and your way. But what it helped shape me to is a couple things. And one for me is when I first moved up and then got involved with other committees and I used to worry a lot about having people like me and having people accept me and feel, and not be mad at me and that kind of stuff. And throughout the years, and as I've gotten older, and some people say I've gotten curmudgeon-y and everything else, I've gotten a lot more tougher skin, would you say, or just a little more on how to just let some of that go and know that I can only be me and do what I can do. And I'm not out to impress the world. I'm out to hopefully change it, but I'm not out for accolades and, oh, what a great job you're doing, what a great thing you're doing, and what a great person you are. That's for you to decide and you to make that opinion and decision. And regardless of what you decide, that's what you decide. And I just have to continue to keep trying to be myself. And to me, another, excuse me, great example of being a leader is not to be the controller, not to be the one who tries to influence or take over the whole event. A good leader to me, and I've been chairs of committees and I've been graciously elected some presidents of some organizations and groups for a while. A good leader to me is one that sees the abilities and skills in others and brings those forth for the betterment of the group or the organization. And the leader is not in the forefront. The leader is there as the figurehead or spokesperson, but not there to take all the glory and the glamour. They're there to help the organization shine and make it look good, not make yourself look good. And so for individuals like us with disabilities, it's not for personal glory. It's for us to get comfortable with ourselves, understand who we are, and then to be able to move forward and implement and share that within the rest of society and the world. I always say, I always look for the day, and I know it's a ways away yet, that we'll be able to have an individual with a disability go on to be, let's say, a lawyer or a newscaster or whatever. And there's been some cases that it has and other places where it happened, where the disability is just not there. It's just, oh, this person's a lawyer. Okay. And the media doesn't have to be saying this lawyer, this blind lawyer or whatever, you know. It will hopefully get to the point someday where we'll all just be able to be, but right now we're not there yet. So we still need to educate and still need people to understand and know who we are and what we're able to do and what we're all about. But it's just to go along and just try to do your daily routine and self as much as you can.
All right. So here's a question that I found interesting. Someone in the chat, someone in the audience asked if you have a biography available.
No, I don't. Easy enough, I don't have one.
And then our next question is, technology has made your life easier, but I am wondering how societal views of blindness have changed during your lifetime.
I think I'll give you a great example of that. When I first was going through school, I went to, you know, interesting, in Milwaukee, we did mainstreaming real early. I would go, in my elementary days, I would go to a elementary school and go half the day to a special classroom where I learned how to do large print and later on Braille and everything, and work on some of my visual skills. And then the other half, I'd go to regular classes. And now we're really mainstream and everybody just goes normal, blah, blah, blah. And when I went to the School for the Blind, I was part of the pilot program there to go to high school in Janesville, Wisconsin for half day and then go to the School for the Blind for the other half. And first of all, that school doesn't exist anymore. It might still be there, but it's working with individuals with very, very severe disabilities right now. So it's not even just a school for individuals who are blind. So that's been a big change. Societal all the way along, I think, from when I first was growing up, I saw a lot more where two things. One, families didn't want to deal with it, so they shipped their kids away to school and out of sight, out of mind. Or other ones, they were totally smothered and they were totally, you know, kept at home and everything was done for you. Don't worry about, we'll take care of you and da da da. So I've seen a lot more as I've grown up of opportunities and of us as individuals getting out in society and being very strong participants in the job market. There's a lot to still go. We're still one of the largest groups with unemployment of any of the groups categories, but we have a long way to go, but we have made advances. And we also are working a lot more now to just get individuals with disabilities out in the community fully, socially, interacting within living, socializing, activities, other things. So all of that, the more and more we get out and we're part of and just be a part of, the more acceptance we will have. I've also been finding that throughout the years, the generations coming up behind me, the acceptance and the interactions and the being treated by those generations after me have gotten better and better. And my nieces and nephews they don't even blink twice now when they meet somebody with a disability. It's not even secondary. They'd go up and they approach them, they talk to them, da, 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 da. And some of that will be having them grown up in a household of people with disabilities and not just the blindness. I bring home friends with other disabilities and they've learned it. But I've seen that in a lot of the other members of their particular group that we label each other with, if you're a Gen Xer or this or that or whatever. So I see that I see the acceptance getting better. Now, does that mean there's still a long way to go? Absolutely, there's a long way to go. But I do, with the implementation of more accessibility and impacting and the benefit of everybody from those developments to just attitude, I'm seeing a lot better. Where an area that I think we really need to focus on and reach out to and work with are all of our wonderful people coming from other cultures, other areas of the world, because there's a lot of different attitudes and a lot of different ideas and philosophies around disabilities when you get into different cultures. And right or wrong, it's what it is and it's who they are, and they just need more outreach to help them to understand that the individual within your community, within your family, within your, does have abilities and is able to get out and do things. And I think, you know, and more they see individuals doing it outside in the, all around them, and to people talking with them and such, I think the more, as generations go along, that will improve also. So I think that's the answer to that question. I'm just going around in circles, so I'll stop right now.
All right. So our next question is, what ways can those without the loss of sight be allies and help advocate in the community or our daily lives for individuals who are blind?
I would tell you this, and this is what I have found very enriching. I'm not right now currently involved, but I have been in the past, and I may in the future too. But as I mentioned earlier, I've gotten involved with a variety of different organizations and committees within my local neighborhood and within the city of St. Paul. Everywhere from working with the Science Museum as a consultant on making exhibits accessible, to down to being on the my neighborhood council, Dayton's Bluff Community Council, to where there I was elected to be president for 2 years. And I've also been involved with the American Council of the Blind as president for them for 4 years. In my professional organization, there's a group called the Minnesota Rehab Association. And with them, I've been the only person so far within the organization that has been asked to and have run for as president of that organization twice. Nobody's ever done that before, and I'm greatly honored by that. So again, it goes back to being confident in who you are and knowing that you're going to run into obstacles, which I have, and being able to step back and figure out ways, and being able to speak up and say, no, this is what I need, or this is what needs to be done. And hopefully having people around you that you encounter that are open to and willing to and know that. When I first got hired at LifeTrack, the person who hired me, the day I started, the first thing she did was walk up and didn't say, oh, what do we got to do for you now? She simply kept saying, so what do you need to get your job done? And they got it for me. So I'm very impressed by that. So I say, you know, to help with the to get people to understand, to make accommodations, to do different things around the issue of blindness, is as much as you can and as comfortable as you feel, get involved in your local community. Or as simple as we've been doing a lot with our city council person, and to where, especially around our neighborhood, we've got some streets that are pretty damn scary to cross. And so we've gotten involved with them and we even got involved with my wife and I an undercover sting operation to catch speeders. So that was fun. Got to play police officer for a little while. But to work with them and to help them understand. So even just that, just going by email or phone or in person, whatever you feel comfortable with, getting a hold of your council people and bringing up issues and concerns. And trust me, I've done some lobbying on the state level. I've gone out to the federal government. I've done everything, and I have found that where I have the greatest impact and the greatest opportunities to advance just acceptance of and understanding of individuals' disabilities is the more local you can go, the more impact you'll have. So that, I would say, would be the best way to do. And also work on your family, not just your immediate, but your cousins and because even though you're part of that family by birth and you're brought into it and you're accepting you as this, there are many situations where I found that family members just don't get it or understand. So the more you can share with them and open to, and some will be open to it, and I've run across some who haven't been and don't want to hear it and don't want to deal with it. You just need to know, well, I've tried, there's nothing I can do, and just shake your head and walk away and hope that someday they'll become open to whatever. But the biggest thing through it all, as I've said throughout everything, just be you. Be the best that you can be and be you. Well, I sound like I'm going for the Navy or something, but I'm not. So please don't go fight a war.
Our next question, hypothetically speaking, if you were asked to do accessibility testing, websites, documents, etc., would you take offense at that because it's exploiting your disability, or would you consider it a specialty area that you have considered expertise and therefore makes sense?
I would look at it as the opportunity to help shape the website. Now, please don't ask me to, because I am not a good computer person. Only thing that computers have done to me is raise my blood pressure. A lot of what I talk about is what I hear from other people and what I've experienced through my own personal thing. And I've been asked by work to look at this website, and I've been asked by this, could you just check out this website and see if it works or not? And I've done it, and I don't think I've ever felt put out by it or upset by it at all. And you know, I would tell you this, that if they come to you and you feel comfortable and you want to try to get some payment for it, go for it. You know, work your way into being a consultant with it and type of thing. But if you feel, you know, if somebody you know or something like that, I think sometimes we can get caught up with emotions and be personally hurt. And trust me, I have learned to, and I keep learning to, how to check my ego and how to check this type of thing. And there are days I'm yelling at the TV screen that, for God's sakes, it's 2021. Why haven't we done this? What are you talking about? Why are we still talking this issue? Why, you know, don't tell me you don't know. We're 2021, you should know. And I have to tell myself, there's a lot of people out there that still don't understand and that still don't get it. And when it comes to the website, and when it comes to being asked to look at it and see how it works and how it checks out, go for it and do the best you can, because every little bit you can do that will help advance and help that organization, or whoever it may be particularly, to get something that is accessible than to just sit there with something that we can't use. So I guess the biggest thing and the hardest thing is try to check the ego at the door.
All right. Wow, thank you, Wally. Your experience, your insights, all of this has been really fascinating and like incredibly helpful to learn. Your input on everything and your advice is just really, really great. Is there any other last comments that you have for everyone here?
Sure. I don't claim to be the end all, cure all, answer all to everything. This is a lot of what I have seen and what I have felt. So please don't feel I'm telling you this is how you should be or what you should be. I think we as individuals with disabilities have a lot to give and a lot to share. And that's what I want people to be open to, and to have everybody to be willing to take time to learn about. I understand that we have different ways we wish to be addressed or wish to be communicated with. And I say, great, for whatever the situation may be, whatever it is, go for it. However you want to do, if you want the disability first, or if you want the person first, hey, that's your cup of tea. Just let people know that's how you wish to do it. And when it's in the proper situations, utilize the right way to address your terminology. I would just like to end by saying, currently in the last many years, my wife and I have been practicing Buddhism. And under Buddhism, it's the human being, it's the individual, it's the person, and you work to calm yourself from within. And I've got a lot of work to do yet, trust me. But you work through meditation and such, and we all work towards and believe in that we're all connected and we're all part one, and we're all the energy of whatever's flowing through, and we're all interactive, and we all play a role with each other throughout just ourselves and without everything within the world, from trees to whatever. We all have this connection, this energy that keeps us together. So why do we spend so much time trying to divide ourselves and trying to separate ourselves? I think labels can have their place, they can be important, but what I have seen happening and what I observe is that labels have been being utilized to divide and to destroy and to separate. And we all have parts of us, from whether it's our heritage, whether it's our disability, whether it's our sexuality, whatever it is, we all have different parts that we attach to, that we utilize, and that make us up. And they're important and they're valuable, and they're for us to get our identity, feel strong about ourselves. But I think it's more important for us all to be able to learn from each other, grow from each other. And the way to wrap it up and finally say, for me, is that for me, one of the greatest gifts I think we have, and what I think we need to do a lot more of, is let's share food. Let's have meals together and share our foods. I love going out to different restaurants and trying different meals and different cultures and such. And so if food helps break down a lot of barriers and help break down the walls, go for it. Let's just have meals and learn about each other. So stop dividing, stop destroying, bring us together via that we're all part of the human existence, and we all have a right and an obligation and a participation within our society, and being a piece to help it keep growing and move forward to wherever we're going.
What a wonderful message to end on. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and also to join us on March 23rd, next Tuesday at 8 o'clock Central Time for a conversation about spinal cord injury with Ann Cody. Also, get ready for a book talk on March 30th with Mallory Weggemann. You can order her book on Amazon. Dr. Knopf will put a link in the chat for those who are interested. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching the Rehabilitation Studies Speaker Series. Thank you for joining us for this week's presentation. If you'd like to learn more about applying for the Rehabilitation Counseling Education Master's Program or the Rehabilitation and Addiction Counseling Master's Program at St. Cloud State University, please email rce@stcloudstate.edu. Applications are currently being accepted for the fall 2021 term.